All right, thank you all so much for coming to an unlikely story tonight on this beautiful night. Tonight we're so pleased to welcome Michael Holley. Michael's a former Boston Globe columnist and the popular host of WEEI's Dale and Holly's Afternoon Drive Time Show, as I'm sure. Co-host. Did I messed up already?
I'm trying to get me in trouble already.
Michael's been covering Boston sports and the New England Patriots for years with the Globe, and he has some great stories to tell. Hopefully we'll hear some of those tonight. He's also the author of the New York Times bestsellers Patriot Reign, Boardroom, Never Give Up, that he wrote with Teddy Bruschi, and Red Sox Rule. In his new book, Belichick and Brady, Two Men, the Patriots, and How They Revolutionized Football, Michael Holley takes readers behind the scenes of the relationship that transformed the Patriots from a middling franchise to the envy of the NFL. Based on dozens of interviews with former and current players, coaches, and executives, Belichick and Brady is an eye-opening look at the minds, motives, and wild ambitions of two men who have left an indelible mark on the game of football. So, hopefully, we will hear some great stories from Michael tonight. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Michael Holley.
Thank you, Kim, for that very gracious introduction. And before I tell you guys how happy I am to be here, and that is sincere, that is absolutely true, it's a beautiful facility. Before I do that, could you do me a favor and give an applause and an appreciation for this space? People ask me all the time, I'll do interviews for the book, and they think they know what I'm going to say. And they say, hey, Michael, tell people where you can get the book and where they can get the book, Amazon.com. I said, well, that's one way to do it, Amazon.com. But I really love bookstores, and I appreciate bookstores, spaces where we can go and talk about ideas, and ideas are appreciated. So we should never take them for granted. I want them to last forever. So even if I'm talking to somebody in Green Bay or Indianapolis, well, they don't have bookstores in Indianapolis. But when I'm talking to somebody anywhere in the country, I always tell them to go to their local bookstore and get the book. So I'm just thrilled to be here. I really am. We're going to have a great time tonight. We're going to have a book reading. We're going to do some Q&A. We're going to sign some books, just really have a good time. Being down here in this area reminds me of Teddy Bruschi. It always does. And I was working on the Bruschi book, and he lives in North Attleboro still. We used to meet around the area, but I always tease Teddy about the beginning stages of the book process. I went to him and I said, do you ever think about writing a book? And this is in 2000, this is shortly after the stroke. I said, do you ever think about writing a book and telling your story? And I wasn't married at the time, I didn't have any kids. And he said, yeah, I've thought about it, but I don't know if you're the right person to write the book. I'm right here, Teddy. I'm right here. I have feelings. He said, no, look, it's not personal. I read Patriot Reign. It was really good, and that's fine. But my story is one of a guy. It's not just a football player. It's a man trying to figure out what to do with his life at a critical point and making these decisions with his wife and thinking about 3 children. He said, you're not married. You don't have kids. So how could you possibly understand my story? I said, hold on a second. I went and called my girlfriend at the time and said, hey, baby, okay, you want to let's do this. Let's do this. I mean, I love you. Let's get married right now. That's not true. But I thought about it. I told him, I said, look, I never played football either, but I am here to listen to you, and I can communicate your story if you will just put your trust in me. And he did, and we came up with that book. But Teddy Bruschi is a huge part of what I'm going to talk about tonight. We'll get to that in a little bit. I will say, in all seriousness, I'm so grateful to have this book. This is my 5th book, and this book And really, even larger than that, this career really is an answered prayer for me. And God has really blessed me. I can remember being 8 or 9 years old. I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of kids. I see some kids here around this age, 9, 10 years old. And we play outdoor, football outside, and basketball outside. I tell people, and this will give you a sense of how old I am. There was an AFC Championship game one year where look it up. There's a wind chill of I think minus 59. It was the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the San Diego Chargers. And that day, that morning, we went outside and we played football, and it was just fun. So football, baseball, basketball, we played it all. And I was a bit of a scout when I was 9, 10 years old. So out of all the kids, I felt like I was pretty much middle of the pack, or maybe end of the pack. And there were a few times I stood around saying, okay, I can't be the last one picked for this game. Come on now, somebody pick me. But I knew if I wanted to be involved in sports, it was not going to be as a professional athlete. So I always liked to write. And I thought, if I could be a sports writer, wow, what a cool job that would be. And so to be here standing in front of you folks today is really incredible. And I think back to when I was 24 years old, and I was working at the Akron Beacon Journal. I grew up in Akron, Ohio. It was my hometown newspaper, about 30 miles from Cleveland, the Akron Beacon Journal. And I was fortunate enough to have 2 job offers simultaneously. I wasn't looking for a job, but I got these phone calls back to back. It may have been like on a Thursday and a Friday, or a Friday and a Saturday. So the first phone call I got was from Boston, the Boston Globe. And wow, at the time, I was blown away. I was a kid watching Will McDonough on TV talking about the NFL. They had Peter Gammons, and they had Bob Ryan, and Jackie McMullen, and Bud Collins, and Kevin Paul DuPont, and all these superstars. So I was just amazed that they wanted me to come and be a sports writer. I was very happy that I thought about sitting on that bench, and proudly sitting on the bench and learning from some of the greats, Jackie McMullen, and so many people. So that was one phone call, and I had to make a decision. And then the other job offer was from the New York Post. New York Post. So I paid attention in my journalism classes, and I thought of the New York Post. I thought of that classic headline, "Headless man found in topless bar." That's what I thought about the New York Post. So, New York Post, Boston Globe. I think I'll go to the Boston Globe, and I'm glad. Yeah, thank you very much. Just one person's decided to make a decision. And so I'm glad to be here during this time, pretty much a golden age in Boston sports. We had 9 parades in the 21st century, and 4 of them have been led by the New England Patriots. So 9 parades in 16 years, that's just, that's incredible. It's not normal. And I'm so glad that at 24, I didn't know much of anything. But I'm so glad that I made that decision, and it prevented me from writing about the New York Jets for the rest of my life. Thank you. I see you. We're on the same page. Speaking of the Jets, I'm not really sure how this happened, but I've had one editor for a long time. He's with Hachette Books now, but when I first started, when I wrote Patriot Reign, the publisher was HarperCollins. My first publisher, my first editor with HarperCollins, there's somebody calling me right now. They're not here. They're an unlikely story, so we can't talk to them. They're not at the right place at the right time, so I'm going to put that down. But HarperCollins' first publisher, a guy named Morrow DePreda. And so Morrow really taught me how to write books. I had no idea. I just kind of gave him some material, and he gave it back to me, and then gave it back to him again, and we shaped it into that first book. Morrow was my first editor, and he moved over to Hachette, and he worked with a guy named Doug Grad. 2 really good guys, solid guys. The only negative thing I can say about them is that they're both Jets fans. So my editors are Jets fans. And so I didn't even do that. I think I'm not perfect. I got a lot of work to do. I'm trying to become a better person. But one of the things I did to them was pretty cruel, unintentional. This is during the book writing process. And so this is the longest book I've ever written. It's almost 400 pages. And it really spans the art of the Belichick-Brady relationship, even before they met. It starts in 1996. Bill Belichick is fired from Cleveland. They think he has no idea about quarterbacks. They think he has no idea about the modern NFL. Obviously, they're wrong. So he's leaving Cleveland, coming to New England to assist Bill Parcells as an assistant head coach. And at the same time, 2 hours away in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Tom Brady is trying to work his way up the depth chart at the University of Michigan. Now, I told you I grew up in Ohio. That makes me a Buckeye. He's a Wolverine. So I just think it's hilarious that the University of Michigan had one of the greatest quarterbacks in history, and they had no idea what to do with him. Typical Wolverine. I love it. Anyway, I digress. So I'm writing this long book, and I'm trying to just make sure that I put all the important things in there. But I didn't want to go too crazy on all the big games. And you think about all the playoff games that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady have been involved in, and the Patriots have been involved in. And for a lot of franchises, we can take this for granted, a lot of franchises, a divisional playoff game is a big deal. In New England, we say, well, if you're going to get the divisional playoff, they should win that one, and then they'll be in the AFC Championship game again. That's just how we think, right? And we don't want to be spoiled, but we're spoiled. So I'm trying to write this, and I say to the editors, I said, am I focusing? Am I doing too many summaries on the big games? There are so many big games. Then I thought about it a little bit, and I wrote them back. I said, you guys are Jets fans. You have no idea what I'm talking about. I need to come to Unlikely Story and talk to the people who can get with me, who know what I'm talking about with big games. I mean, as Jets fans, we keep talking about 1969. Okay, it's over. And they crack me up. They tell you, hey, we went to the AFC Championship game twice in a row. Good, what happened? What happened? Okay, went to the AFC Championship game. Anyway, let me stop making fun of the Jets.
5 minutes.
I love them last night. 28-3. Beautiful. Oh, see, you got some gamblers. See, that's not good. I'm not going to recommend that. There are better ways to spend your money. So this is what I'm going to do here. I want to have a good time here with you guys. I want to read an excerpt from the book, and then I'm going to take some questions, have a nice, robust Q&A, and I'll let you guys direct it. It will go as long as you want it to, as long as you're interested. When you guys start to get a little annoyed, bored, whatever, then we'll sign some books. And I'll get you out of here. And you can't blame me for going to work tomorrow, yawning, going to school tomorrow, yawning, all that stuff. I want to read from an early chapter just because sometimes it's easy to forget where we came from. In 2000, when Bill Belichick and Tom Brady arrived in the same year, you think about what was happening in Boston sports. The way we look at it now is not the way we looked at it then. So I like to kind of step back and see who Tom Brady was before we knew him, and to check in on Bill Belichick before he was Bill Belichick. At this time, it was just a new coach for the Patriots, and here's this guy, Tom Brady, the new guy. If the newest Patriots quarterback had been paying attention to the reports, he would have taken the advice given to many borderline talents, which is to rent and not buy. But what fun was that? He needed a place to live, and so did Dave Nugent, a Purdue defensive end whom the Patriots drafted 2 slots after Brady. Chris Eitzman, an undrafted tight end from Harvard, was also a friend of theirs who needed a better housing situation. Technically, Eitzman resided in a lovely Canton, Massachusetts home. The reality was that the home belonged to one of his classmates' parents, and Eitzman was living in the basement. Luckily for the three rookies, there was a condominium available in Franklin, about 20 minutes from Foxborough. The place, located at 9 Cherrywood Lane, had been in the Patriots family for several years. It was originally bought by Scott Zolak, Bledsoe's former backup, in 1993. It had over 2,000 square feet, a couple of bedrooms, a nice basement, and a shared wall that often led an elderly couple next door to call the police in music volume dispute for Zolak. Oh, Zo. 2 years after buying the place, Zolak sold it to the team's first-round draft pick, cornerback Ty Law. 4 years later, Law found himself in a different financial world. He signed a $50 million contract with the Patriots, which included a $14.2 million signing bonus. He wasn't going to stay in the condo for long, and he found the perfect buyer when Brady was drafted. Like Brady, Law went to school at Michigan. He knew how competitive one had to be to thrive in Ann Arbor, so the quarterback from his alma mater got his attention. Law remembered his own fight to play immediately at Michigan. He had asked to go one-on-one with future first-round pick Derek Alexander in practice. When Alexander caught a short pass, the freshman corner said, "Is that it? You're supposed to catch that. That means nothing. Where I come from, it's the best 2 out of 3. He broke up the next pass and intercepted the third. He quickly became a starter. In the pros, Brady was unlikely to be as bold in his first year as Law was in his. Once, Bill Parcells challenged veteran receiver Vincent Brisby to humble the talkative rookie. Brisby and Law went one-on-one in a drill that Law dominated. He celebrated by ripping off his Nike cleats and saying to his teammates, "Anybody got any goddamn Reeboks? Because this is my plan." You got to remember the commercial? Reebok. Plan Reebok, you got it. All right, nice one. Anyway, Law was a hard worker, and he respected Brady for always being in the weight room. Plus, he was a Michigan man. He was going to make a special condo sale to Brady. I knew he wasn't making any money. I said, "You know what? I'm going to leave all the furniture for you," Law says now. I left all the furniture, TVs, pool table, everything. I left him everything, move-in ready. I said, "Just bring your bags, man." Sold it to him for like $100 grand less than what I could have gotten. I had just signed this new deal. He was a Michigan guy, and I saw the kind of work that he put in. This dude worked hard. I didn't know if he'd ever get on the damn field, but he worked hard. This was part of life in the NFL now for Brady, hanging out on Cherrywood Lane and trying to hang on to a roster spot. Brady was the fourth quarterback. Nugent was a long shot defensive end. And of the 6 tight ends the Patriots listed on the depth chart, Eitzman was 6th. They had fun though. They'd shoot pool in the basement and have what they would call a house tournament, playing an old Nintendo football video game called Tecmo Bowl. There we go, Bo Jackson, unstoppable. Nugent and Eitzman had become wise to one of Brady's signature moves while losing, throwing one of the controllers at a wall to reset the system. He liked to win at pranks as well. One day he and Eitzman approached the napping Nugent and drew all over his face with magic markers. They then put on boxing gloves and hit the sleeping giant until he came to. The belly laughs came from Nugent's reaction. He immediately got up and decided to go to the grocery store. He casually walked the aisles there with his face covered in elaborate markings, wondering why he was getting so many odd looks. When they all went out together, Eitzman would get the superstar treatment. He had gone to school locally after all. He had been the subject of several articles in training camp. Brady would watch at restaurants and gas stations when fans would approach and ask for his roommate's autograph. In a way, Brady and his friends were actually going back to school in the NFL. Anyone who was going to play for Bill Belichick had to be willing to engage in detailed study. He had to know his own playbook and the tendencies of his opponents, too. Despite what the public thought of it, Belichick knew that the team wasn't a few complimentary pieces away from the championship. This was a top-to-bottom renovation job, and it needed to happen physically and psychologically. "I think I understood him very early," says former Patriots linebacker Teddy Bruschi. "It was short-term focus. It wasn't new to me, but it was new to a lot of people. We had a lot of players who were thinking, I want to win a bunch of Super Bowls. He wasn't talking that way. I said, I get this guy. I get it. I don't think I'll be going out to eat with him or anything like that. But from a very early point, I understood it. I just need you to show me how to win. I mean, I've got a wife at home. I'll be good. I don't need you to love me. If it happens, that's great. Brady's progress was measured strictly in-house, and most of his teammates had little reason to pay attention to what he was doing. He still wasn't the backup, nor was he the backup to the backup. It was fair to say in September and October that the rookie was effectively experiencing a redshirt year. He was expected to know the playbook and add some muscle to his thin frame. That was about it. Those who were paying attention noticed that he had the same curiosity as Belichick and competitiveness equal to anyone on the team. Members of the defense would taunt him when they intercepted him in practice. He talked back, and then after practice he wanted to know, what did you see? What did I give away? The Patriots had begun the season with 4 losses, won two consecutive games, and then bookended those with 4 more defeats in a row. They were just 2-8. Isn't that unbelievable? The Patriots were 2-8. Anyway, they were just 2-8. Once again, the worst team in their division after a November loss in Cleveland. And they lost to Cleveland. There was fan frustration with just about everything. Poor record, the dullness of the team, being stepped on by the 6-4 Jets, Bledsoe's interminable patting of the football, and honestly, the performance of the other Boston sports teams. The Bruins had traded Hall of Fame defenseman Ray Bork the previous season, and in the fall of 2000 had fired popular coach Pat Burns. The Celtics were learning painfully that the energy and charisma of Rick Pitino wasn't enough to revive the franchise, that the young team actually was regressing under the president coach with the $50 million contract. The Red Sox streak of running in place, paternalistically held back by the Yankees, had reached 82 years. There was a different twist to the misery every fall, and this year's story was that the Yankees had lost 15 of their final 18 games, still finished 2 games ahead of the Sox to win the division and yet another World Series title. Ooh. What fans started to grumble about was entertainment and hope from the Patriots, especially since Bledsoe had hurt the thumb in his throwing hand. Belichick continued to give Bledsoe starts, although there was a public push for a young backup. No, there weren't any requests for Brady. The exciting name was
Michael Bishop.
Michael Bishop! A Heisman Trophy runner-up while in college at Kansas State and an absolute rock star performer in Patriots preseason games. He was all freestyling dynamic motion in the summer games, outrunning all who chased him and flicking the football with perfect spirals farther than any quarterback the Patriots had. The season was already lost, and there was nothing an inert Bledsoe could do to save it, so why not? It was a popular sentiment, which is why the controversy of undercards going into a game surprised so many people. Constant studying and body sculpting had paid off for Brady, who had moved up in the crowded quarterback rankings. He was now 3rd on the depth chart, still behind Bledsoe and
John Freeze.
prize to that man right there, John Freeze, but in front of Bishop for good. Bishop was furious and wanted to be released. Instead, 2 weeks later on Thanksgiving, he got a chance to watch Brady play briefly and blow out loss to the Lions. Brady was back in Michigan, once again trying to scale an intimidating depth chart, but those were the only parallels. As a teen, 18 and away from home for the first time, his disappointment led him to consider running from the situation. He was mentally and physically stronger now, and maybe even a little outrageous in his ambitions. Bledsoe wasn't just one of the Patriot stars, he was one of the most recognizable personalities in New England. He was the highest paid player on the team and had endorsement deals with a local pizza company, a local truck dealer, and a local bank. He was geographically and symbolically a long way from the Chestnut Ridge condos in Cherrywood Lane. He and his wife had just built a 9,000 square foot mansion in Medfield with a $10 million price tag. Bledsoe was well liked too. His baritone was the smart and articulate radio voice of the Patriots after wins and the humble and well-balanced one after losses. What Dick Rabine, the first-year quarterbacks coach, had seen from Brady in February was now apparent to the rest of the coaches in November and December. Brady had something. Maybe it was the element of surprise. He drove a canary yellow Jeep that he had bought in Brockton. So there were 1,000 jokes about the California kid in the sunny Jeep. He deserved those jokes. Yet there was toughness just below the appearances and an ever-present willingness to compete and win. It could be heard with the thud on the shared condo wall. It could be seen with a broken ping pong paddle after a loss that he thought should have been a win. It could be felt by a few with the pursuit of that top job. He was a climber. Eitzman, the roommate from Harvard, certainly had seen his share of those in the Ivy League. So when Brady made that subtle move from fourth to third on the depth chart, the ascending player in flight, Eitzman thought of a conversation they'd had in the summer. They were at a small college in Rhode Island then, staying late after their second practice of the day. Eitzman was worn out by the heat and the workload, and Brady continued to push. He asked for one more rap. He made the argument for one more drill. One more. One more. Finally, the quarterback, who had never played it down in the NFL, looked at Eitzman and told him what was going to happen. "I'm going to beat out Bledsoe," he said. "You watch." So that was Tom Brady in the early days. So, let's talk. Let's talk. And I feel like the light is kind of like going crazy here. I wish I could kind of roam around. I used to have those professors sometimes in college. They used to freak me out. They get down and they start walking through the aisles. And like, man, is he going to see that I'm not really taking notes like I should? What's going on? So I'm not going to call anybody out, but I might just do one of these. I might roam around a little bit. So don't be freaked out. But I really want to take some questions and just see what you guys are thinking about. I mean, there's so much I could talk about, and I don't want to just I don't want to push my agenda on you. So this is all interactive. My friend here, first of all, how old are you? You're 9. Thank you for coming, and thank you for coming to a book signing and a book reading. That's awesome. I appreciate it. What's your favorite subject in school? Science and social studies. All right, good. I want you to do well. I want you to do great the rest of the school year, okay? Can you do that for me? Do great. All right. So what's your question?
What's it like to be a sports writer?
Whoa. What's it like to be a sports writer? You get a lot of free food. Oh, no, that's seriously, that is an awesome question. That's a great question. It's a lot of fun. And I think for me, tell me what your name is. Emily. Thank you for that question, Emily. I think all sports writers need this. I really need it like around 2004, before you were born, which is really crazy. But anyway, so around 2004, I took a book leave. I used to work at the Boston Globe. I took a book leave, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because what happens when you're a sports writer, you get to see so many games. And depending on what you write about, you get to travel all over the country and all over the world, talking to lots of people, seeing some interesting things, the World Series, the Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final. I mean, the Olympics, it's crazy. And so I think what happens to a lot of sports writers, you get used to that and you lose the magic of just how special that is. Some people look at it as just a job. And so I felt like I was going down that path. I took a book leave. I was away from the press box for like a year and a half. I sat in the stands. I may have had a little sip of water as I was watching the games, and I fell in love again. So I think it's important when you're a sports writer, even though it's a job and you want to be great at the job and you want to be conscientious, it's important to have fun. So ultimately it's fun. Thank you. Very good question, Emily. Thank you. Yes.
Hi. Listen, I love your books because they truly take you behind the scenes, and the fact that you get so many words out of Belichick after seeing him after a game, you can't tell whether he wins or loses. But what I want to know is, years from now, Belichick and Brady, and I hate to say this, retire.
Yeah?
They're both going to write a book. Who would you really want to write the book with if you could only do one, and why?
Wow. Okay. All right. Who would I really want to write the book with? See, that's a good question. This is how my mind works. So I'm thinking, all right, one of those books is harder to write than the other.
Yes.
So I'm thinking of like time spent. Bill Belichick is the harder book to write
Right.
because you're going all the way back. I mean, his life it's really been a football life.
Right.
His dad. So you really have to go back. His first football memory was like 7 or 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going through so many, there are lots of controversies in his life. There are a lot of games in his life. The Giants years, the Jets years, the Browns years, Patriots, his views on the game. He's finally, when he writes his book, he's just going to unleash.
Yep.
Just the chapters on Roger Goodell are worth it. So I'm going to say the Belichick. I mean, if I had to pick one, I would say Belichick, and they both would be dynamic. Yes, sir.
It kind of piggybacks a little bit. I feel like I'm famous. Actually, yeah, piggyback a little bit on that one. Like, do you feel as though Belichick and Brady might retire together? I mean,
I don't.
Okay.
I don't think they'll retire together. I don't know how you guys feel about it. People ask me about Belichick and Brady, all the time, and how long he'll play. He's 39 now. I'm being conservative and saying 44. I think he can go realistically 44.
Right.
But only because I just do it in 5-year increments. So I look at him in 2010, unanimous MVP of the league in 2010. Last year, led the league in touchdown passes. So I asked myself very honestly, what can he do in 2010 that he couldn't do in 2015? What's the answer? Nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not a rah-rah, Minuteman, boom, answer. I mean, that's real. You're looking at the games. The offense is still based in the middle of the field, accuracy, short passes, occasional deep pass. He looks better with the deep pass. That first game against Cleveland, I haven't seen him throw a deep pass like that in years. I mean, consistently, he seemed like he was really enjoying it. So, if he stays healthy, continues to eat the foods that we don't want to eat, I think he can play. He can play for a long time. And whereas Belichick, I know he said he didn't want to coach into his 70s, but now he's 64. He's still passionate. He still loves all the little details. He loves the practices. He loves the draft, free agency, coaching, teaching. I just can't imagine him saying, I don't want to do it anymore. So I think he'll last longer than Brady.
What about Jimmy G then? Say Brady does stay longer. You get Jimmy G who showed really good. How do they use that? He's not going to stay with longer.
First of all, I'm trying to figure out your shirt. All right, okay. No. I see it. I didn't say I couldn't see it. That's what I'm trying to figure it out. No, I love you, man. I love you. Jimmy G. What about Jimmy G? It's like that whole thing. Like you're told when the lights come on. I haven't been to a club in a long time. Trust me, I've been married for almost 10 years. But when the lights come on at the club, you don't have to go home. But you can't stay here. So I think that's the story with him. You try to get some kind of compensation for him. You try to get a draft pick. Like if they think the only way this is, people ask me about Jimmy G all the time, but the only way it's really complicated is if you have the next. Like they look at him right now and say, "Oh, that's the next Brady. That's Brady." Okay, no, that's a problem. That's a dilemma. Do you go with the next Brady who hasn't really proven anything and move on from the established guy, or do you trade the guy who you think is going to be great? And I don't think they're there. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is the next Tom Brady. And so I know this is unpopular. Most people think this way in sports, and I'm not even sure if they think this way in corporate America. I think they might, and I go the other direction. Most people look at it this way. You have a 39-year-old guy, and you have a 25-year-old guy. So even though the 39-year-old guy has displayed excellence and has performed at a level that we really haven't seen before in NFL history, and the 25-year-old guy hasn't, they will bank on potential. And they'll say, well, he's not there yet, but he might be able to get there in 5 years or 6 years. I just don't think that way. I don't think that way in sports. I don't think that way in life. If you prove to me that you know how to do something at a high level, I will squeeze the life out of you until you get more and more. Like, if I need to pick up Tom Brady, if he can barely walk, and just pick him up, and all right, Tom, you're in the huddle. All right, Tom, here's the ball. We got to take a step away. Just throw it. Just try to get it there. Yeah, that's the way I look at Brady. Just try to get as much as you can out of him, because I've seen him do it. Yes, sir.
Remember when that whole fiasco happened with Parcells leaving and needing, and then Belichick was the one-day coach of the Jets?
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like Kraft knew that Belichick was going to be a great coach. I don't know if you agree with that.
Mm-hmm. I do agree.
Pursued him.
I agree.
And how did he know that? And why didn't he go after Belichick and say goodbye to Parcells?
Oh, when Parcells in '96, the first time?
No.
No, he said, but why didn't he go after Belichick and say goodbye to Parcells when?
When all that silliness was going on, when Parcells up and left.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Okay. Well, good question. So, how did he know? I'll answer the first part.
yeah.
1996, Belichick comes from Cleveland to New England to assist Parcells. Parcells brought him there. It wasn't Kraft. Parcells brought him to New England. I know what this guy can do. He can help our defense tremendously, even though he's not technically the defensive coordinator. That was Al Groh. So Belichick would be working out 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and he would see Jonathan Kraft. And Jonathan has his MBA from Harvard, and they would just start talking about business, and they start talking about the NFL, the modern NFL, how you don't just have to know about players, but you got to know about what players are worth in the open market and these tough decisions. Do you extend this guy? Do you let him walk? Do you bring in the draft pick and try to develop him? And so and Robert talked with Bill about this too. They talked with him, and they felt like he had a real global sense of football. They were amazed by him, actually. And so they kept that. They kept a bookmarker in that. But like a lot of us, at times relationships complicate things. So he has Bill Parcells. He's got Bill Parcells over here and Bill Belichick over here. Bill Parcells and Kraft at that time couldn't stand each other. Parcells brings in Belichick. Belichick is seen as a Parcells guy, yet he connects with Kraft. And so if Kraft is having issues with Parcells, at that time, it just wasn't right for him to take a Parcells guy as the next coach. So he brought in Pete Carroll. And those 3 years allowed him to understand that it doesn't matter what the politics are. He's the right coach for the team. And everything aligned because now Belichick was ready to get out of that mold of being in Parcells' shadow. And it really was wearing him out. It was Belichick I'm talking about now. He felt restricted because no one was really giving him credit. I mean, you think about what was said. That's another thing, and that's in the book. 2000, 2001, before they win, look, goes 5-11 that first year without Parcells. He starts off 0-2 the next year. And all the little slights, it was called Little Bill. Most of his time in football, exactly half of his football career had been as an assistant to Parcells. So he really needed to go out on his own, and Kraft needed to say, all right, I'm just going to make a distinction between Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. They're not one and the same. They're different. I'm going to bring him in because I've talked with him and I like the way he sees the game. That's a great question. Yes, sir.
I'm a 42-year season ticket holder.
Oh.
I've been that since I was
Great.
18 years old. And I remember the time when Kraft bought the team the very next day, season tickets went on sale. We used to have to go up to the stadium to buy the tickets. And it had snowed, 8 inches of snow. And we knew we were in a different era because Kraft had tents and canopies all the way around the stadium parking lot for us to stand under, serving coffee, donuts, everything. My perception of that team changed then. What do you see from national media versus our local media currently, right now, and how we've handled all the crap that we've had to endure as fans of the New England Patriots?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's always somebody who pops up. I'll go with the media question first. There's always somebody who pops up and has something to say about the Patriots. And I know it doesn't feel this way, but it's huge. It's actually less now than it was, say, 10 years ago or 9 years ago, the Spygate. It's less. You still have them. You still have some trolls out there who like to come in and tweak and say, "Oh, this whole thing is tainted. And they're cheaters, and they should be banned, and take away the Super Bowls and all that stuff." But for the most part, I think most football writers, football commentators do respect the Patriots very much. As far as Kraft is concerned, he's been playing chess for a long time. They got season tickets. His family got season tickets in 1971, I think it was. Jonathan was 7 years old at that time. Like 71, so he actually got the team in 94. He had in his mind that he wanted to somehow get in and purchase the New England Patriots. So I think he felt that. He's always been like you. 42 years, you said? He's one of you. And by the way, sir, I'm not just pandering. I might be pandering, but I'm not just pandering when I say, thank you. You guys are amazing. Seriously, thank you. Thank you. All of you for coming. I'm not rapping. This is not my rapping. You're like, hell, this dude is trying to rush out of here. Just hearing you and hearing your story and thinking about it, this is not normal. What we're doing here, this is not normal. This doesn't happen everywhere, where people just come out to a book signing, a book talk, and you'll have an audience like this. So it's really special, and I appreciate it. It's really genuine. So I just want to say thank you. Give me something to belong. Give me great. So now, see, I would have given it to you. But see, like Kim, Kim's got her own thing. So
he brings up a good point about talking about the national perception and stuff, and I think actually we are in a surrealistic bubble up here, and with all the parades and everything. But not only with the teams, but also with yourself and the writers, we've got an unbelievable crop of writers in the Northeast, and I think we're spoiled as far as that's concerned, with to have such quality people carrying this through this era of excellence as well, including yourself.
Oh, thank you.
But so that being said, now I think about I believe it was today you guys were talking about the article in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, my college roommate.
I mean,
of all people,
blows my mind.
I'm not surprised.
It blows my mind because it's just awful writing, actually. So that being said, that we're spoiled and in this bubble, is it difficult for you? And do you see a lot out there? Because you obviously see more than us. I try to see. I'm interested when a big story happens. I'll skip over on radio and listen to people from other towns and stuff and find that everything is. It truly is inferior in other places. Some towns are good, but do you find that is it frustrating to you as a writer to see such poor writing out there? In your opinion, where are other good towns that have good writers and coverage?
I think thank you for saying what you said. for me, just going back to what I said at the very beginning, when I was making that decision between Boston and New York, I mean, the talent at the time was amazing, and it still is. I mean, there's so many. Some of these people are still around and just doing different things. Lee Montville is still in Boston. He's still here. You would say not just a great sports writer, but just a great writer. The fact that Bob Ryan is retired and still contributing to the Globe. I mean, so many people. Even Dan Shaughnessy. I know there are a lot of people. Shaughnessy likes to mess with people, but he's very accomplished. And he's very good at what he does. His job is to get your attention. He does a good job of getting your attention. He does a good job of putting his opinions out there. So there's so many people. But in terms of frustration, no, I'm not frustrated by commentators or writers in other towns. One, because it's enough to handle what I'm trying to do on a daily basis. Every writer, no matter who it is, Emily, keep this in mind. Really. Every writer, even the writing masters, what are they, the favorites? Like J.K. Rowling, anybody, the writing masters, if you don't pay attention to it, you'll spit out cliches. You won't be able to do what you really want to do. You have to stay on it. You have to stay on your craft on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So I'm not worried about what they're doing. I'm trying to make sure I'm staying on top of myself. So yeah. Well, you gotta follow Kim. Kim. She'll get to you.
Kind of following off him. I mean, I've been a sports fan my whole life, but the first time I listened to sports radio was in 2013. I heard Salk and Holley for the first time. And, I'm not going back to this question. I really like you, so I kept listening. Let's put it that way. I was wondering what made you get into.
Where is this going?
Talk radio. What made you from being a sports writer to wanting to get into talk radio? How did that all come about?
That's a fair question. That's a good question. Seriously, I learned a lot from them. Salk and Holley.
Hey, you were good.
I learned a lot. You want it? What's that? Yeah, 10 to 2. Yeah, 10 to 2. You have some thoughts on that one too. What's that?
You should be all day. Yours is the best show in the whole.
Oh, thank you.
It's true.
Thank you.
I can't, when you go on here.
I knew as soon as I walked into this room, there's something about this crowd.
Okay, but this is you both all day.
I like this crowd. I'm going to tell Dale tomorrow. He won't believe it. So you guys were very nice. So okay, now how did I get into radio? So I'll give you the quick version. Came to the Boston Globe in September of 1994. I stayed for 7 years. And so in September of 2001, and this is what I was talking about, like that I kind of lost my focus. Emily set it off with the perfect question. You were sitting here by an angel. They're like, listen, have me confess here. So in 2001, at that time, I was impatient. Thought I had a bad attitude because in 2001 I was 31. So, and Bob Ryan there at the paper. Dan Shaughnessy was there. Will McDonough was still alive. So I wanted it quickly. If I wanted to go to the World Series, Shaughnessy had first dibs in the World Series, and if he didn't have first dibs, Ryan did. If I wanted to go to the Final Four, Ryan always went to the Final Four, and they were going to send two columnists to the Final Four. Super Bowl, I was like, oh, forget it. They had like a bunch of people in line before me. So I said, wow, it's just not going to happen for me here. At that time, what I should have done, I know now, what I should have done is just gone on vacation and just relaxed. Instead, I went on vacation, and my first day on vacation, I got an email from the Chicago Tribune. And it's like, you know, when you're in a long relationship, somebody comes by and they start winking at you. They don't really care about you, but they're winking at you. And you need a little pat on the back. And so they came along and said, wow, you know, you're at the Boston Globe. Man, you know, you got all those veterans in front of you. You know, you come here. We'll put you on the side of buses, and we'll put you on billboards, and you can write a column. You can go anywhere you want. I said, these people are inside my head. This is exactly what I want. What I didn't realize is, one, I didn't want to go to Chicago, but I took the job. Went to Chicago, and that's when I knew I loved it here. I didn't want to be there. I was writing about the Blackhawks. I don't care about the Blackhawks. They were like, go to the Bears game. I was like, for what? Because you're a columnist. You gotta go. You gotta write about. I really have to write about the Bears? Seriously? So I was really humbled. It was the best thing that happened to me. I was so humbled there. I thought, I can't turn around. I've made a mistake, but I'm just going to stick it out here for a couple of years and see what happens. And my old boss called me and said, we want to replace you with you. Come back. I said, okay. So I came back. He left a couple of years later, and I had an opportunity to do TV. And I had this book called Patriot Reign that I needed to write, and I just couldn't find the space to write it. I said, oh, if I do TV, I have more time to write. Went to TV, finished the book. TV show was canceled after, like, it should have been. It was canceled after 8 months. Should have been canceled after 4 months. So I was kind of floating around, and a guy named Bob Newmeyer, you know Bob Newmeyer, knew me. He was doing 10 to 2. And he was in a contract dispute, and they couldn't settle it, and they came to me and said, would you like to do radio? I said, well, I really don't have a job, so yeah, I mean, would I rather be unemployed or do it? Do I have a job? I'd rather do a job. So, and that's how it happened. But it's really been a blessing because it's an opportunity to speak with the fans on a daily basis, which I love, absolutely love it, and a chance to write. So it's the best part. I know it's a long answer, but that's the real answer. I'm just being real with you guys now.
Okay.
So with the Patriots going 3-1 with Garoppolo and Brissett, I know it's a lot of talk has come up with Belichick, Brady was more important. But I mean, you look at great quarterback coach combos. I mean, Walsh, Montana, Shula, and Marino. Is it fair, even really possible to separate those two guys?
No.
Recognize them both as the greatest.
I mean, I guess it could be. I mean, if you're of that mind, it could be fair. I don't think it's possible because I think the genius of them is the togetherness of both. I mean, it kind of, like when I read that clip, that little excerpt of, Brady has the curiosity and competitiveness that Belichick has. They're really cut from the same cloth in that way. For example, Tom Brady at times, when he gets really excited in practice, the defensive players make fun of him because his voice goes from baritone to soprano. So like, come on guys, and then the defense is like, come on guys. They just kind of mimic him. They go back and forth. But even when they're making fun of him and they're competing, as I read there, after practice, he still does this. So how'd you intercept me? He'll go up to him like, what did you see? What did you see? Did I, was it my eye? Were you reading my eyes? Was it, did I tip it off with anything? And he's very obsessive about the details, which is who Bill Belichick is. Like if Bill Belichick were here right now, I mean, he would talk to you guys about football, but he might want to hear the story of an unlikely story. You want to know, like, so when you guys bought the building, then what? They tore down the building? And you built it back up? All right, so what was that like? What kind of wood did you use? And like, how many people do you typically get on a Tuesday night for a book? Just those details. They're the same way that way. I think they fit. And another Another thing, I want you guys to pay attention to this. If you find it, let me know. Tweet me or call the station. Try to find a clip of Tom Brady calling Bill Belichick Bill. Notice what you guys ever notice that? Coach Belichick. Coach Belichick. Always. So this is a guy, internationally famous wife, all the commercials, GQ, Esquire, friendly with Mark Wahlberg, Donald Trump. I mean, he's got all these famous people, all these famous friends. But when he comes into football operations and comes into the locker room, he allows himself to be coached. He demands to be coached, and that's huge. He has had the authority to do this. Ask for a new contract, big contract, and then take big money, and then get every available dollar. He doesn't protest when Belichick trades or releases some of his best friends. It's been happening for years. Lawyer Malloy was one of his best friends. Deion Branch, one of his best friends. Willie McGinnis, one of his best friends. Wes Welker, one of his best friends. So you just think about that combination. I think it just works with both of these guys. But I think the larger point is, and I'm telling you about my personal worldview, I think most of the time it's the combination that works, and it's the ego that brings some good combinations to an end. Like the Red Sox. One of their former general managers, in the National League Championship Series right now. One of their great managers in the American League Championship Series right now. Stay here. Stay here, man. You can have something great. It's always better together. I'm excited. I can talk all that. I can talk to you guys all night. I'm so excited to be here.
When you write your next book with Ryan,
you say that with such authority, man. You sound like my editor or something. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you write your next book with Ryan Fitzpatrick, what would the title be?
Picked off. This guy up here has been asking if you're waiting for a question. I do want to tell you. Do you know what my next book is? Do you know this? Do you have to know? It's not even a secret. I'm serious. My next book. And there's a guy. I think they call him Big Poppy. So it's memoir. I'm doing this memoir, working with him right now. He's been unbelievable. It's been really unbelievable. Everything is on the table. Everything. So don't think we're ducking topics. It's authentic, and that's what I really like about books when they're real. My man here.
So you worked for the Akron Beacon Journal in 1993, and how's it working on A Question of Color, the culture project?
Yeah, and first of all, tell me your name.
Prentice.
Prentice?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm a freshman.
You're a freshman. What's your favorite subject in school?
English.
My man, what are you guys reading right now in English class?
The Odyssey.
The Odyssey. Man, you guys are going into deep waters.
I get that far.
In the 9th grade. The Odyssey, do you understand it?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me about it? I really struggle with that one. So Prentice, my man, who's really advanced, is asking. In 1993, I worked on a project. It was a year-long project at the Akron Beacon Journal. It was called A Question of Color. So it was really examining race in Northeast Ohio from many different perspectives, in business, in education, the justice system. It was all over. It was a year-long examination. And Prentice, I got to tell you, the theme here, I want the kids and even the adults to get this. You must be humble. You must be humble. You must listen. You have to know what you don't know. Because I always wanted to be a sports writer. I told you that earlier. That's all I wanted to do. So the managing editor of the Akron Beacon Journal came to me and said, I want you to work on this project that's going to take you out of sports for 6 months. You're going to work on it for 6 months. And I said, no, I don't want to. I want to write about sports. And he said, he said, man, you thought you had a choice. That's cute. You thought you had a choice. No, you're going to do this. You're going to do it whether you want to or not. And that project wound up winning the Pulitzer Prize. And so I was working with 11 other reporters. There were groups of 3, 4 groups of 3. And so it was really incredible for me on a number of levels. One, Pulitzer Prize. I saw people smile in the newsroom that I didn't know could smile. Generally, these are pretty dour places, but people were so happy. A guy came up to me and kissed me on the lips. You know, wasn't ready for that one. But you know, it was great. It showed me that there's a world outside of the sports department, and it really allowed me to strengthen some of my interviewing skills and reporting. There was a lot of digging, a lot of research. So I enjoyed it. It was great. And for instance, I was raised by my mom, a great woman who actually got me into this business, told me what to do to get my first internship. So I won the Pulitzer Prize, and I called Mom up. I said, Mom, I was 23. Mom, we won the Pulitzer Prize. She said, oh, sweetie, that's great. How much money you get? I said, Mom, it's not about the money. Mom, we won the Pulitzer Prize. Come on. Love, Mom, love. Anyway, good question. Thank you. Oh, yeah, you know what? These folks over here, they don't get any love. Over here. Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Have you heard any feedback from Brady or Belichick when you were writing the book or now that it's published, what they think of the book?
Not yet. But I would think, just throwing it out there, I would think that they would say it's fair. Not fair like, fair. No, but fair like thorough. It's all in there. There was no agenda whatsoever at any point in writing the book. None. Spent a lot of time praying during this book. I never want to do that. I never want to just put something in there to sting somebody or punch somebody. I just wanted to tell the story the way it needed to be told in an authentic way. So I would hope they would see that. I remember, speaking of feedback, so Patriot Brain, first book with Belichick, came out, and I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. I said, oh man, he's got something to say. Oh boy, I don't know, what's he think of this one? I said, yeah, I like the book, but there's a lot of profanity in there. He said, I'm not saying I didn't say that, but my kids don't know I talk like that. I said, Bill, your kids are around football a lot. Your kids are around you a lot. Yeah, they know that you may drop a profane or obscene word every now and then. But I think just from being around these guys, they know that I'm not a slasher. That's not what I do. So I would think, it's a good question, but I would think they would believe it's thorough and accurate. And then Kevin, if you could go, the green shirt back there, and then my man right here on the corner, right on the aisle.
What is Belichick and Brady's relationship, and did you ever interview them together?
It's a coach-player, consummate coach-player relationship. I wouldn't call them drinking buddies. I wouldn't call them golf buddies. And I think that will happen when one of them retires. It's like, you can't really, you can have a good relationship, if you're Bill Belichick or Tom Brady, you can have a good relationship with the other guy, but you can't take it too far because you still have to think about the team dynamic. I mean, you're a player, and even though you're an influential player, you're a leader. So Tom Brady has a special relationship with Bill Belichick, and it's too special. Then he goes back to the locker room. Is there trust in the locker room? Is he one of the guys, or is he a representative of management? And if you're Belichick, who's a guy who is extremely harsh, rightfully so now, he's extremely harsh on players and coaches and himself. Those of you who run businesses, keep this in mind. Extremely important trait about Bill Belichick. Will call himself out all the time in front of the group and just tell them, I made a mistake. I was wrong on this, and I need to get better at it. And so that sets a tone. I mean, how many, if you're a boss or if you work for a boss, how many people work for bosses who just say, no, it's not, I'm not passing the buck. It's on me, and they're sincere about it, and they give you specific examples. Like what he does with us in the media, I don't even, that's not real. And we need to coach it better, we need to do this better, we need to do this, all three phases, blah, 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 blah. And then if you ask a follow-up question, so give me specific, he won't tell you that in the media. But behind the scenes, he absolutely will tell them how he can get better. And so I think that's an extremely important trait. So he does all these things. He's harsh on himself and the coaches and the other players, and he spares Tom Brady and undermines Bill's leadership and it undermines Brady's leadership. I know I did not interview them together. Green shirt back there. Right there, second from, see the kid? You got to ask a quick question. How old are you? Talking to the microphone, sir?
9 years old.
9 years old. Man, I love that. The younger generation represented tonight. What's your name?
Ben.
Ben. And tell me your favorite subject in school. You don't have to tell me what I want to hear. You don't have to tell me what I want to hear.
Science or math.
Good. Help the NFL out. They need some help with that. So what's your question?
Did you talk to Bill Belichick, or did you like do research on him?
Well, both. For this one, this is more of my a combination of time that I've spent with him over the years and research. But I've been fortunate, Ben, that in the last 12 years with Belichick, I've had some pretty good access, unprecedented access with him. And that has really helped me out as a writer. And not just with his books, but just in terms of my process. And the first time I was able to see Belichick behind the scenes, it had such an impact on me that I felt like my research and my preparation went from here to there. Because I just saw how meticulous he was, and it kind of rubs off. It's infectious. Good question. And this guy right here, he's been waiting for a long time. He's patient. I hope you got a great question. I know you did.
Well, I don't know, it might be boring. I've watched the Patriots since 1960. I went to the first 2 years of the Dickerson team. I was in the halftime game. And I've watched the Patriots, except for 4 years when I was in the service. I've watched the Patriots and the NFL, but mostly the Patriots. And one of the things I always saw that drove me crazy was, in spite of having some pretty good players, the team management and the team ownership could never get it together.
Right.
Regardless how good your team is, people running it don't have their stuff together. It's true.
That's right.
There's a dynamic when they're alone, correct, in Belichick. And I'm thinking about, like, when Belichick says, I want to let Ty walk in. What is that dynamic? What is that relationship between the two of them?
Between Kraft and Belichick?
Yeah.
Trust?
If Kraft said, no, you're not doing that, how's Belichick handle it?
I don't think it would go well, but that it would be so rare. I mean, if he said that right now, I mean, think about. Let's just quickly. Let's just do it together here. Say it again.
said he hits on almost all of them.
Yeah, I mean, right. Let's just say quickly of the controversial ones off the top of my head. So, first controversial move is not giving Bledsoe the job back and going with Tom Brady. We call that a W, right? That's a win. Then trading Drew Bledsoe to Buffalo within the division, getting the first round pick back. Pick becomes Ty Warren, good player, good run stuffer, championship player for them. And then moving on from Lawyer Malloy, they win the Super Bowl that year and next year. So, in 2004, Ty left after the 2004 season. Seymour down the road. I mean, even Vinatieri. I mean, there's so many moves that he's done and so many wins that he's had. It would just be strange. Like that might what you described. Yeah, maybe you do that on the front end. Maybe you do that around 2002 or 2003. But if you try to do that right now, it would signal something else. Something would be amiss in the relationship, and it might be a way of telling Belichick that he wants him to go. Because why would he do that? So it's trust.
Well, it appears that Kraft agrees with all of us that we trust in Bill.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at it this way. Franchise was worth 172 million, 174 million when they bought it, 172. Now it's over 3 billion. And you got 4 rings, 6 Super Bowl appearances, 10 AFC Championship game appearances. Yeah, if you don't trust him now, you just can't. Maybe you just don't trust anybody. You got trust issues. They're just trust issues. Can I get one more? This guy, one more. I don't know. Guy, you got that wrap up look about you. Yeah, so.
Oh. I don't know about wrap up.
No, she got that. She's in charge. I'm just following.
So, does Belichick go to Brady? You mentioned all of his good friends that end up getting traded, or whatever. How soon does Brady know?
Well, I think he knows as soon as the player knows, but in terms of inside information, does Belichick go to him and say, hey, we're not going to sign Wes Welker? No. Now, but this is why you asked a great question. And I think for a lot of us, either we put something on Brady, we expect Brady to be bigger than he is in the building, to kind of exercise his weight, considerable weight and leverage in the building. Either we do that, we expect Brady to be that, or we say to ourselves, we would do that. But he doesn't. Like he just wants to, he wants to be one of the guys. I heard that over and over as I was working on this book. He wants to be one of the guys. And you hear it the first time, you say, oh yeah, right. But he really does. And so one of the guys is not getting the inside information from the coach. Now, if the coach goes to one of his players, if he goes to Wes Welker and says, Wes, we're not going to sign you, then naturally Wes will go to Tom, they're talking, hey, I'm probably not going to come back. But as far as getting a special phone call from Bill Belichick, it doesn't happen.
Thanks.
You're welcome. We got 2 of you. We got 2. Now you guys aren't going to run out after after this, and you're going to be able to sign some books, right? I got 3 kids. Come on.
So I kind of double question. So I'm kind of curious. I've always wondered this. I listen to you guys in the afternoon and I listen in the morning on my commute.
Mm-hmm.
How much preparation do you guys do for your 4-hour stint on the radio? And how much sporting events do you guys actually watch? Because when you guys talk on the radio, you refer to, this writer wrote this writer wrote that, this happened in this game, something else happened in another game. It just seems like you know everything that occurred and everything that was written in the last 24 hours. And you can all cite it and talk about it like you were there.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? Do you not sleep? I still have kids.
Yeah. Well, you know, with kids, you know, my kids, I guess, I would say kids almost, well, 4, almost 6, almost 8. So they get up early. They got plenty of energy. So the sleep, sleep is optional at times. But to answer your question, the preparation is ongoing. You don't just prepare for the job. Like, okay, here, I'm going to work tomorrow, so here I am a few hours before work preparing. It's constant. Like, I'm going to check in after this on the way home. I'll check in and I'll get an update on this Indians lost, right? Okay. So 3-1 in that series. So just read up on the Indians and the Blue Jays. But I'm not going on the air until 2 o'clock. But that's part of the preparation. And then I want to check in on my Don't Be College roommate who wrote that article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about how Tom Brady is an all-time great and Bill Belichick is not. So I may even text him and tease him a little bit. So, but it's constant. It's constant. We don't really stop. We watch a lot of games live, tape a lot of games, and I'm always fearful of running out of stuff to talk about. It never happens in Boston. There's always something to talk about. I'm always fearful, so I always got a few things in my back pocket, over-prepared, just in case. Like, we will never talk about college football. I don't know why. It's not a big college football area, but I'm always ready to talk about college football. If anybody wants to talk about the Big Ten and Ohio State, I'm ready to go. So, yeah, I think that's what you have to do. And you have to love it. For the kids in the room, you want to figure out what you want to do, really figure out what you love. Figure out what you love to do, and then find a way to do it. Because I would never even think of logging hours or going to my boss and saying, this is overtime now. This is beyond my time. I don't keep up with it. I don't care. I love it. And I love watching sports, talking about sports, writing about sports. And I get enough sleep. Yes, sir.
You've had, pretty much unprecedented access behind the scenes with the Patriots.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that Belichick isn't like what we see. That's not how he is, and you said that a little earlier.
Yeah.
But can you give maybe one quick story of that epitomizes how Belichick is behind the scenes as opposed to what we see in the public?
Yeah, a few stories. One, I'll give you. It's almost like what you'd imagine would happen. You see a show, okay? You're watching a show, and then it goes to a commercial, and the show keeps going on. Don't you sometimes wonder, what do they really like after this whole script is over? So Bill Belichick, you see the guy standing here at the press conferences, and he's giving his little thing. Hey, it is what it is. We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati. That whole act. So after press conferences, you'll be amazed at what he's paying attention to. It seems like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world, right? He's totally disengaged. Okay, let's just wrap this thing up. Let's get this thing over. After press conferences, he walks through. So he goes out the side door, and through that side door, there's a weight room. And then after the weight room is the players' locker room. So many times, he leaves that press conference and he'll say, wow, there was a guy in a red shirt sitting in the 4th row. Never seen him before. Hey, can you believe that reporter is supposed to be covering the team? He was late for the 3rd time this week. Or, wow, that was a really stupid question from the back of the room. Or, what? Oh, I can see what kind of story they're working on. He's aware of everything. So that's one thing. But more on a human, the human side of him, the funny side of him. And I've told this before. He's a huge Jerky Boys fan. Anybody know the Jerky Boys? pranksters, telephone pranksters from New York, New Jersey. So one time, he was in his office, and I thought I heard something in there. I thought he was like breaking down game film. Then I heard something that sounded like a giggle. And I went in there, and he's dying laughing, listening to the Jerky Boys. He's like, did you ever hear this one? This is funny. Hey, check this one out. I mean, he loves music. He loves his kids. Many times, win or lose. I've seen it on a dozen occasions. His son's in there, sometimes his daughter in there with friends of theirs. He'll go in there and go into his office, and he'll get on the whiteboard and he'll start diagramming some plays, and his kids will have questions, and he'll patiently explain, the ins and outs of football to his kids, who know the one-on-one stuff, but they're asking coaching type questions because his daughter's a coach and his son is a coach, and I think the younger wants to coach too. So there's really a, dare I say, sweet side to him that a lot of people don't see.
And you do see on occasion in a press conference when someone asks a question that he thinks is a really good question, he'll expound and he'll go on for 5 or 6 minutes.
Well, what he likes to do more than anything is teach. His mom is a brilliant, still alive, a brilliant woman, knows several languages, a school teacher at the high school level and at the college level. And his dad, football coaches, most of the best coaches are the best teachers, in my opinion. So he's raised by 2 teachers. Dad wrote a book. Mom loves good writing. He loves books. He loves words. He loves teaching. I mean, he's a product of his parents. And so if you ask him a question about the history of the game or how things work, he really enjoys getting into that and expanding. Oh, you guys are bored now, huh? One more, right there. You get the last question. Pressure's on it. You better be good. It's going to be great. It's the best question of the night.
I go to Mansfield High School down the road, and every summer there's some Patriot players that come and practice. We've had Gronk and Edelman and Garoppolo, which is pretty cool. And I think a few years ago, the turf that they practice on was anonymously resurfaced.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you knew anything about that.
So you gave me a tip. That's a tip. I'll look into that. Now, you go to Mansfield High School. What year are you in school?
I'm a junior.
Do you know, there's a great English teacher there. Oh, man. Do you call their teachers by their last name or their first name?
Last name.
Okay. But you wouldn't know your teacher's first name. Here's a teacher named Keith. I'm going to find his last name. I'm going to try to say. Here's an English teacher there. He's great. He's a great teacher at Mansfield High. That's a fine. That's a fine. That's a fine with the Patriots. But yeah, I love good teachers. There's a guy there who's a tremendous English teacher. And if you haven't had him, I think you should look him up. You should have him next year. Give me one more question. As I look for this guy's name. I'm gonna help you out. Any more questions?
That would be an opportunity for you to maybe brag a little bit. Over here on the couch.
Over there.
Okay, hey.
So, you talked about having unprecedented access, which obviously you have with the books you've written. And Belichick doesn't grant that to just anyone, obviously. What do you think it is about your writing style or your approach, whether it's through Bill or through Stacey at the Patriots and with David, that, tips you could give to some of the younger kids in the room if they wanted to, pursue that kind of thing down the road? Like, what's your approach, and what do you think they like about you that you get all this access? Because, like I said, it's pretty unprecedented, the access you get granted.
It's probably stunning good looks. No, I'm just kidding. I write about this in the acknowledgments of the book. you know, I certainly don't deserve it, you know, because I was one of the people, when I was writing for the Globe in 2000, I was one of the people who said that this was not going to work. I ripped Bill Belichick before he even got here. Ripped him. No way, man. This guy, he's going to be a terrible head coach, and don't let him take over the organization. I'm glad they didn't listen to me, but it's funny how things work. I had gone to New York 2 years before writing that column on Curtis Martin. I was doing a story on Curtis Martin, one of my favorite guys I've ever met in professional sports. Really thoughtful, humble guy. And there was a PR guy with the Jets. I hit it off with him. And there's something about him, I liked him. We stayed in touch. And when I wrote that column on Belichick, ripping him, this guy, this friend of mine, said, wow, you were really unfair to Bill. You guys should have dinner. Now, unbeknownst to me, I thought he was just my friend. That guy was also Bill Belichick's friend. That guy was Bears Nigerian, who was Bill's #1 guy. Like, nobody knows Bill Belichick better than Bears Nigerian. And when you asked me the question earlier about which book would I want to write, Brady, Belichick, Bears has a great book to tell too. He probably won't tell that story. He knows everything. And so that's how it started. It started from a negative experience, became a positive experience, because we went to dinner and we talked for hours about music and family, food, and football. I mean, it was pretty incredible. And after that, I said, wow, do you mind if I stay in touch with you and ask some questions off the record, ask you, for my column? So it was great. I can tell you guys this now. The statute of limitations is up. But I would go to Bill Belichick and I would have questions. Just questions about the league or questions about the game. And he would tell me things that I would put in my column, and I wouldn't attribute them to him, but this is my inside information. I said, man, this is making me look way too smart. This guy here. So I will tell you this, and we'll see who's in the room, how far back your memories go. My favorite Super Bowl. Anybody want to guess what my favorite Super Bowl is for the Patriots?
Right.
Who? That's right. Never forget your first love, right? First love. So first one, my favorite one. So the day before that game, I went to Bill Belichick in his suite in New Orleans, and I said, I want to make the case that this game is not, you guys are 14-point underdogs. I want to make the case that you have a shot in the game. He said, oh, that's easy. Sit down. And he gave me essentially the game plan. And so I wrote a column saying that the Patriots are going to win the game and this is how they're going to win it. And it all came from him. So, and they won the game. People are like, hey, Michael, how did you know? I don't know. It's just a hunch. It's just a hunch. So in the 2000 season, I had done a story in the Globe on watching film with Bill Belichick. And watched film with him. And he was amazing. During the film breakdown, I said, this is a book. I said, one day I want to write a book on this NFL that a lot of people don't see. I want to do that in a couple of years. And that became the first one. So, it's a blessing.
Keith Fisher.
Keith Fisher. Mr. Fisher. You know Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't had him yet, but...
Oh, you gotta have him. You gotta have him. Listen, you go, you tell Mr. Fisher, find him tomorrow. Tell him Michael Holley said hello. Keith Fisher is a treasure. He is a treasure to the Mansfield school system. He happens to share one of his favorite books is one of my favorite books. My favorite books. Great book. If you haven't read it, Invisible Man, Ralph Ellison. Such a great book that my son, Beckham, his middle name is Ellison. Yeah, so that's, Keith Fisher. You the man. Thank you so much. So, hey, listen, let's sign some books. All right, let's sign some books, and you guys are great. I want to thank you. I'm telling you sincerely, this is one of the best signings I've ever had. It really is. What an awesome crowd you guys are. Great questions. Thank you to the kids in the room. Thank you for your patience, your attentiveness, your great questions. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Go back after we win this next Super Bowl, will you?
What's that?
Go back after this next Super Bowl.
I think we got a shot now.